Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Monday Q&As. So let's do this. First question. Jason, thoughts on Jose Castillo's getting popped for Winstrol in the IPF drug tests do work after all? No, they don't. Well, actually, they do work. They're what I've always said, and they're what Victor Conte, who made millions of dollars helping thousands of professional athletes pass tests. Drug tests are nothing more than an IQ test. It's a test to see if you're fucking retarded. And in Jose Castillo's case, he's probably fucking retarded for one of two reasons. Number one, no drug-tested athlete who's subject to random testing in the modern world would use Winstrol. It can be detected for up to 3 weeks in urine. So why would you use that? So if he intentionally used Winstrol knowing he's a tested athlete, he's a fucking retard. So he failed the IQ test. What also possibly happened, turinabol is very, very popular among drug-tested athletes because it only has, for urine metabolites, only has a 72-hour detection time. However, I think they've extended that out to a week with the modern test that they developed in 2013 for the Olympics. They extended it up to where you can detect it for up to a week, which is why so many guys who came up clean in the 2012 Olympics, when they pulled the old urine sample story, they found hundreds of positives for turinabol with the new test that they developed in 2013. So even turinabol, you need to be careful and just go with suspensions if you're going to do this now, for the most part. I mean, but with peptides and so many different suspensions available, there's no reason for these guys to even be using orals at all unless they're using an oral with zero detection. So what ended up happening, probably because turinabol is a little expensive to get, a little expensive to source for the powders, his supplier, he probably used a second-rate supplier, and he bought turinabol. But because they can get Winstrol powder cheaper and easier, a lot of people will substitute, who make this stuff on the black market, will substitute Winstrol for turinabol and sell it as turinabol. Because for the majority of people, they won't really be able to tell them apart. They function so similar that for most lifters, they can't tell the difference. So if he's taking Winstrol thinking it's turinabol, he's going to get pretty much the same sort of gains from it. And he won't know till he gets popped on the drug test. So he used a shady supplier as a drug-tested athlete, which again, failed the IQ test, fucking retard. So that's how they work. They're an IQ test to see if you're stupid or not. That's the only purpose they serve. Okay, next question. In your latest PED stack video, you said natural versus unnatural is a younger man's argument. Did you mean that in a healthy 20-year-old non-competitive recreational lifter shouldn't be using any PEDs? Or were you simply saying natural versus unnatural is a debate among younger, naive lifters to argue about? It's kind of a mix of the two. In all honesty, I don't understand why a non-competitive recreational 20-year-old lifter would really mess with gear at all. A lot of them do it, and I don't really have an issue with them doing it, but I don't know, it seems rather pointless at that point. But it is more the other, because this is something that the younger guys argue with back and forth, and when older guys argue it, they don't understand the fringe benefits. It's only because they don't know what they can get out of it, of the quality of life that it leads to when you're quite a bit older. So for us, the quality of life potential benefits for using some of these things vastly outweigh any sort of ethical, silly diatribe that goes on in the fitness community or bodybuilding world or all this internet community. It's pointless for us to even argue this. We should be looking at cost to benefit analysis. How will it improve our quality of life? And leave these ethical arguments for the younger guys who want to debate nonsense on the internet. It's really a debate that should stay in their circle. For us older guys, this is a no-brainer. And again, anyone who's arguing otherwise has not experienced the fringe benefits or realized what they are. All right, next question. I have to run 2 miles in 13 minutes, 50 seconds in the Army to get an APFT badge. Besides just running, what kind of endurance program would you recommend for me to possibly reach this goal? Thank you. I would recommend some sort of hybrid training. You need to focus on a mixture of heavy power work to improve your overall strength and your lower body. You don't need to be doing a lot of high reps. Here's what's going to mess you up. You don't need to do a lot of mixed phase training. You need to separate your endurance work from your power work, because your power work is going to improve the perceived workload of the faster running you're doing there. So I would kind of cut out any sort of real serious hypertrophy work for your lower body, unless it's something like 10 sets of 3 done with short breaks, which again is still increasing speed and power. That's what you need to focus on. Power in the lower body, trying not to gain excessive muscle mass, because again, heavy legs that are too heavy, you're going to change the swing weight of your legs. It's going to make it more difficult. You might want to back off on the calf work for just a little while. If you're doing calf work, you know what? Stop doing it. Let your calves atrophy half an inch. It's going to make you run a hair faster. So if you're really struggling to hit this number, this is a short-term change you can do. and then focus on your running. And you can find plenty of running programs themselves that'll help you with that. But on the strength training end, that's what I would do just to get your power up and change the swing weight of your lower limbs so that you can get that extra speed. Like if you're getting close, if you're down to something like 14.5 minutes, that minor change in strength to size or power to size ratios in your lower body might be enough to push you that extra 40 seconds in that 2-minute run so that you can get there. And then if you want to rebuild any of the, maybe the muscle you lost in your calves or whatever, you can come back and do it immediately after you get your badge. All right, next question. Jason, I find that using a little body English when I row and do lat pull downs engages my lats better and strains my shoulders less. Any reason for this? The shoulder strain is probably going to be an issue, your technique and bar path, but as far as feeling your lats more, it's because, and again, I recommend novice lifters practice textbook strict form. As you get more advanced and you learn your body more and you have more support musculature around your core and things to protect yourself, using a little English can be helpful, but the reason that you're going to feel your lats more is because you're cheating a little on the concentric rep so that you're using more weight. Like if you're normally rowing 200 pounds for X amount of reps strict, you might be able to cheat and do 220 or 230 and cheat the weight up a little with a little body English. When that happens on the concentric, you're then controlling the eccentric, the lowering rep. And so oftentimes the strain that we feel in muscles or the DOMs that we get is more related to the eccentric portion of the movement. So then you're using a heavier weight on the lowering part than you normally were. So therefore you are feeling it more in your lats. And that's most likely what you're experiencing. All right, next question. Do you believe that the mind-muscle connection has real and legitimate benefits and significant hypertrophy gains, or is it mostly bodybuilder bunk? Well, it really depends on how you define it. If it's bodybuilder bunk when people take on this esoteric thing that the concentration in your mind itself is causing the muscle to contract harder, it's rather the case of when you feel something work in a muscle more on a given exercise, you're using proper form. And by focusing oftentimes on how you feel a muscle, say your bicep or your pecs or whatever, what you're actually doing is when you're concentrating on that, you're moving it into a position to where you feel it more in there, but it's a physiological change that you've done because you found just the right elbow angle or the wrist angle on this movement that is actually activating it more as far as the way you're moving your skeleton in your body. And so because you focused on feeling it more, you find the actual physical form that's allowing you to contract the muscle harder, recruit more muscle fibers, at least potentially. And so that's actually how it works in the real world. It's not an esoteric thing that the concentration itself is doing it. It's that the concentration itself is allowing you to find the actual technique, the physical technique that works it the most. So there can be some merit to it, but it really is the issue of it working that way rather than the way some people think that it does. But there can be merit to it. All right, next question. Any recommendation in going on your linear progression program from novice program? Should I take a week off, or I would probably do, if you're going to go straight from my novice program, you finish it out to the linear progression program, I would take a 1-week deload or even a 2-day deload, say 2 of your workout days, and then come in at the end of the week so that you can test your maxes to find your baseline for the exercise. So maybe come in, deload, cut your weights 50%, cut your volume back like 3x5 with half the weight you were using for Monday, Wednesday. So partial deload for 2/3 of the week, come in Friday and then test your maxes, your rep maxes as prescribed in the program so that you can assess your strength level and you can plug in your numbers to run the program. And that would be the easiest way to transition it. All right, next question. Is a Pendlay row a good accessory and back developer even for someone who does a semi-sumo deadlift? I'm thinking it has more carryover to the conventional. It probably does have in some ways more carryover to the conventional purely from a stance and grip width perspective, but mainly the stance perspective, but because it is still training you to develop your back, to use your back explosively to pull from the floor, it is still going to be a good exercise, a good accessory exercise for the sumo, and it's going to be a good back builder that puts size on your back and gives you more starting strength and explosive power for your back. So there's no reason that a sumo puller couldn't use the Pendlay very successfully as an accessory movement. In fact, you guys know I'm a big fan of the Pendlay row. All right, next question and last question of the week. We're going to answer a non-training or nutrition related one just for shits, grins, and giggles. Hey Jason, as a native Texan, what do you think about our conservative politicians who refuse to do anything to secure the border, and what do you think about Trump? I don't take Trump that seriously. I do like a couple of the things he's doing. I do like his ideas to close the border. I am happy that he has an A+ NRA rating. As you guys know, the Second Amendment is my most important political issue to me personally. That's just my personal views. But he is no Ross Perot. I'm not sure that he's as good of a businessman as a lot of people perceive him to be. I'm not sure if he would be good for the country or not. And in a lot of ways, he's kind of a douchebag. But given the choice, if I was forced to vote between him and someone who's very anti-firearm, I would take him every time. Now, as far as securing the borders, problem we have there, yeah, a lot of the right wing, just like a lot of the left wing, unfortunately, profit off of the open border. I do think that we as Texans at some point, if the U.S. government refuses to allow us to close the border, they refuse to allow us to do some of the stuff like we're threatening to do now, to where we remove all federal firearms laws from our state and refuse to enforce them. And particularly with the border thing, it might be in our best interest as Texans to go ahead and leave the United States again and secede. It is a very popular idea here. But as far as closing the borders, too many politicians make too much money off of the drug trade in and of itself. We make too much money selling weapons to the cartels, the federal government does, which we know that's all come out with the Fast and the Furious thing. The Obama administration made a fortune doing it. But the Republicans, many of them are making just as much money off of that, and keeping the border open allows the drug trade to happen. It allows crime to stay up, which allows us to support the law enforcement and prison industry, which are pretty much private industries in some ways. It allows us to keep all these police and law enforcement jobs high. It allows all the prisons and the contracts there, which a lot of politicians are tied to. A lot of politicians are making money off the prison system. It allows the prison system to stay full and for us to overflow them, and then tax dollars to be spent supporting that entire business and industry, which again, a lot of politicians and powerful people are making money off of. So the problem is there's too much money involved for us to close the border for certain people. And so therefore it's not going to be closed because politicians are making money. Rich people are making money off of it, and it's not in our best interest to keep it open. So is that going to change? It's probably not going to change until basically Texas puts its foot down and says either you let us close the border or we're going to leave and then you can fight us. It's probably the only way it's going to go down in the end. All right, guys, but it's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.